Yeah, you like it?
That's insane. Like,
These knobs are the tits.
Those are. Yeah, I agree. Can you see that on YouTube?
Yeah.
These the tits, brah. My name is Brad Jackson, and whether I'm flying airplanes or building pedals, I'm always learning. Join me, and together we'll expand our horizons. This is Jackson Audio. There's a little bit of drama at the shop this week at Jackson Audio. We release the modular fuzz on January 15th, today's New Year's Eve 2020, and before we break for the day and shoot the finger to 2020, we've got to get this pedal complete. We did some mods to it last week because we found a way to make this pedal sound even better. I can't in good conscience release a version 1 when I know version 2 will actually be better. It's all hands on deck today. We're scrambling to get this into production so we can get this pedal into your hands as soon as possible.
Well, we're 2 weeks away from the FUZZ launch. We got enclosures. I hope they look good. We got circuit boards. I hope they sound good. We're gonna put them together and hope we get them out by the 15th.
This grounding is fine. What happened today is what always happens with new products, where you 2 weeks before the launch you get this bright idea like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if wait a minute, we can make this even better, which inevitably it always happens just because Juan and I are absolute perfectionists when it comes to either features or sound quality and that kind of stuff.
So right here, Gavin is going to be putting on the artwork. Literally just squeegee paint on the enclosures, and it looks amazing every time.
We knew we had to make a fuzz pedal because everybody has to have a fuzz pedal in the lineup, and we kept kicking it around. We couldn't figure out which direction we wanted to go, so we kind of just decided let's pick like the top 6. So we put them all in here. That way, it's going to ship with what we think is a really great sounding kind of a utilitarian fuzz. It does a lot of great things, but we're going to introduce our customers to the concept of the modular fuzz by giving them an extra module. So it's super simple to install. Like if you open the pedal up like it is now, there's a module which I'm holding in my hand, and if you notice, there's male headers here, there's female headers here. Conversely, there's female headers here and male headers here. So you can't put it in wrong. So all you do is line up your headers, your female to your male, slide that in, rock it over, line up the second one, push in, donezo. There's 5 more modules coming with more all the time. We've got guys already telling us, hey, can you make this module for me? Because it may not make sense to put a weird oddball fuzz into production as its own product, but it totally makes sense to put it into production as a module that you can decide whether or not you want it as an upgrade. So that's kind of how the fuzz works. Okay, so check this out. The fuzz has a parametric EQ in it. There's 9 controls really. So there's bass, middle, and treble, but there's also 2 accessory controls with the bass, middle, and treble. Yeah. So externally we have a mid-frequency control which lets you dial in specifically which mid-frequency are we grabbing and either boosting or cutting. And that's great because that is always the downfall of most fuzz pedals. So if you can have a pedal where you can dial in the mids and get it to stick out in the mix perfectly, that's awesome for a fuzz. 2 weeks ago we had a version of the fuzz, and it worked. We built it, and it worked. But there was just something about the vintage classic modules that I didn't like. I went back to the drawing board, I made some revisions to the circuit board, and I ordered them. Okay, so this is the modular fuzz. It's all panelized. So here's the main fuzz circuit, and here's 6 cards that go that are modules that can go onto the modular fuzz. And if you get close, you'll see that everywhere there's a little white rectangle. That's a part. I mean, it's ultra super tiny stuff. And we've got to get all these surface mount parts put on there, and that's not something you can do. I mean, you physically could do it, but you'd build 3 pedals a day and you'd go out of business. So you put the circuit board in the machine, and that big arm will wipe solder paste across the circuit board. This machine over here will take a circuit board that's already had solder paste applied to it, and it will pick parts off of these reels. Everywhere you see those square, there was a resistor there, and that resistor is going to fit onto a pad that machine is placing right now. And that solder paste that we put on earlier on the stencil machine, it holds that part in place because it's kind of like toothpaste really. So it holds the part in place long enough for us to take it from this machine over to the reflow oven. And we call this the Quiznos oven. Basically, it's just a really hot oven that you put the circuit boards into. As it goes through the oven, the heat melts all the solder, solders all components. It comes out a completed circuit board that we can break apart, stick in a closure, put pots and jacks on, that kind of stuff, and it's now a pedal. So we have a treble frequency, which again, you can, like the mid-frequency control we had on the outside, you can dial in the treble frequency that you want and the treble Q, the mid Q, bass frequency, and bass Q. Okay, so let's talk about Q because it's, I'm a guitar player, so I don't come at this from a pro audio world. Here's a quick primer on what Q means to you. So if you have your frequency band here, this is all bass, this is mid, this is treble. So let's say that we have the Q trimmer on the inside of the pedal set to full. So what that means is when you boost your mids, you're going to get a very narrow peak on the mid frequency. So the higher the Q, the more narrow and the more acute that boost or cut is. If you had it cut, it would cut on a very, very, very narrow frequency band. If you had the Q set, less, maybe to 12 o'clock, that bell curve would look more like this. And if you think about it, as I play, you're going to notice as I sweep the mid frequency, it actually starts to act like a wah, which is what a wah is. It's a resonant frequency that you move that resonant frequency with the foot pedal. So check this out. What you're going to hear is when I sweep through the frequency band, when the frequency band that I'm boosting right now starts to become I guess the best way to say it is a harmonic of that A, you'll notice it kind of gets bolder and sticks out even more because we're actually stacking the frequencies on top of each other. It's actually really cool because you can hear it peak right here and you can hear it peak somewhere back in here when you play a big power chord on an A. So let's see if we can... So the EQ is actually now, you can almost tune the EQ for the song that you're playing. If you're playing a certain key, you can dial in that frequency and get the mids to stick out. And just because I mess with the mid controls here, the same controls exist on bass and treble. You can do all those same kind of tricks with the bass and the treble, but it's just really easy to show you the mid because we have a mid frequency control externally. So we were building them at the shop, and we had some crazy wild hums on the fuzz circuits. I couldn't figure out why. Like, there's just not enough changed. I researched the difference between what I had done that worked great and what I changed. And I thought, well, there's not a lot different. The transistors changed, but all we did there was we just kind of dialed in the gains a little bit more to get the gain exactly where it should be. But one thing I did do, I changed a resistor, thinking, well, I don't think that resistor needs to be there. I'll just go ahead and instead of removing, I'll just put a value of 0, a 0 ohm resistor. And very thankfully, I'm glad I didn't remove it from the circuit. I just changed it to a 0 value, and as it turns out, that resistor had to be there, kind of counterintuitively, but thankfully the option was still there. So all the drama and all the anxiety of like, oh crap, this thing doesn't work and we need to ship this thing tomorrow. Thankfully, it's all worked out great. So we just changed the value back to the value that it was before, and it works great. And the bright idea that Juan and I had about changing out transistors and making these hybrid transistors with perfectly dialed in gains, thankfully that's worked out really, really well. It's a way better product this week than it was last week, so when you get your new fuzz pedal, it's going to be the best of the best.